Hello and welcome into another special episode of Off Topic. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho. Joining me today, it's Haber.
I'm
Haber, you like the
vibing to
music,
that
huh?
music. Yeah, that was some head bopping music right there. I
There's
like
something
it.
about it. It just gets me just in the right mood. Haber and I were, well, let me start this over. Obviously, the schedule for this week is a little different. It's actually the same for where we are currently, but I'm posting this next week. So it's we're either in the past or you're in the future. But either way, Haber is joining me for kind of an extra show here. Well, not extra, it's replacing. Haber was on earlier this week, although it's last week for those who are watching this live. Time is really a difficult construct for me. But anyway, Haber, I had like a lot of things to ask Haber about, but we were just talking about something completely unrelated. And I was like, wait. This should just be part of the show. And then we started talking about that, something else on top of that. So we'll get through that. Let's go back to the fact that you now stream almost daily with just like your subconscious out loud in Sorare. How's that been going?
Oh, I love it. I was literally saying just before we started recording, like every conversation I have is podcast worthy, and not because I think I'm really interesting, but just because of the way that the conversations go. It usually starts with me doing an incredibly long monologue, having someone else's feedback, them doing a monologue, then you know what I mean? That's just how it always goes. It's just podcast form. But my routine for a while, for the 2 weeks I got back from holiday, was I would play TFT, which is like a League of Legends spin-off, whilst having on this monitor Sorare and Sorare data, and then on this monitor like a TV show. And it was just literally Sorare all day, pretty much, until I had to work. And do like an hour of work and then back to doing Sorare again. So I was like, I might as well stream it, because I guarantee there was so many people doing something similar where they were either working or they were working from home or they were doing something and they had Sorare on, and like they would have something else on their other monitor. Why not have an actual Sorare stream on? Because bar Nep was doing it for a while and I loved having Nep stream on, but Nep's not really doing it right now. So I thought, might as well fill in. I might as well be baby Nep.
I will say that there was a part of me. So I sporadically would catch Nep streams live. And I think part of the reason I personally don't like streams is my own schedule, that like I can't get there live. And if I'm not there live, it's like you can't really participate in the chat. And that part I find really fun. And so I would go to like catch up on his streams, and it was like the Nepenthes stream for 9 hours and 46 minutes. And I'm like, I don't have 9 hours to sit here and watch. And yet, and then I talked to him, I'm like, how do you have anything to talk about for 9 hours? But it's the same conversation I have with my wife when she's like, how do you have enough to talk about to stream every day? And I was like, I could stream 10 hours a day. And then I say that out loud and I'm like, oh, I get the Nep thing. I had a conversation with Nep that was probably very private, that I'm going to share with everyone now, that he was starting to feel some, not doubt, but it was just kind of like what happens if all of this just goes to zero? And I was like, I don't know, but who cares? Like, we're having fun now. Like, sure, we know it can all go to zero. And he's like, no, but really, like, what if it goes to zero? And I'm like, it goes to zero, then whatever it is. And I think he was like, I have to stop talking about Sorare 9 hours a day for a little bit. Maybe he has real work to do or whatever it was, but he did seem like the streams like settled down. And then you started, and I was like, man, and yours yesterday was like 4 hours. I'm like, all right, we're getting closer to like where I can get it all in. But I told you that the other day, that your streaming like just ended. And I was like, I'm going to catch up. And like the YouTube doesn't show like the live chat immediately. And I'm like, come on, YouTube. But like, I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of like, just, I realize how much of Sorare is both really individual and just the opposite. Like, you can't really do it just by yourself. You always want to know like what other people think of an idea, or you get news from other people. But in the end, like, it's your money, your cards, and like your lineups. And so there is this kind of like fun ability to stream, like you say, for hours, where you can just like throw out everything you're thinking, and you do get some feedback. And so it's like it's a fun part of it.
Oh, it's the best part of it. I think so rare is a never-ending conversation, realistically, because there's never anything like, if there's ever a period of the stream where I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe I've spoke about this too long. All of a sudden, in the chat, somebody's asking a question about their gallery, and it just sparks a whole new avenue. But it's funny you should mention that NEP conversation. I'll be completely honest. I truly do. I think so rare will go to zero. I think sometime in the next 5 years, well, maybe not zero, but I think sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, so rare ceases to exist. And am I worried about that? No, because I'll be honest with you, like, I think that if so rare went to zero, there'd be another so rare, because the concept is so fundamentally. I'm trying to think of the word. I keep wanting to use the word addicting, but it's quite a dangerous word when you're talking about like this kind of area. But it's so like enticing and so exciting and so desirable to play that I don't think there'll ever be a world where that concept doesn't exist. But there is definite potential for so rare itself to go to zero. But like, I'm not really worried about that, because at the moment, like, I love this so much. I don't withdraw. I haven't withdrawn for over a year. I've sunk so much money into it, but like, am I worried? Am I upset that I don't have that money right now? Not really. I know, because I love playing it. I love looking at those little pixels on a screen and seeing a dark green score from someone that I believed in, and they're actually starting to play really well and stuff. Like, it's just so I don't care if it goes to zero. I really don't. Well, granted, I probably won't play it if it goes to zero, but I'll play the next so rare, and then the next one after that, and the next. Like, it's completely changed my life. I don't think I'll ever not play fantasy sports now for the rest of my life. Whereas a year and a half ago, I didn't even know the first thing about fantasy sports.
I was thinking the other day that if Sorare goes to zero, and theoretically everything goes to zero at some point, it's just whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, who knows? But it's really the everything around it and about Sorare that I would miss, as opposed to the money.
Yeah,
that. I mean, losing that money obviously would be a bummer, but to be honest, every cent that I put on Sorare, I just considered is gone. Like, I don't.
Yeah, same. Yeah, literally the exact same.
Like, I always thought of it as like I'm spending money. I'm not investing. Obviously, the value of our galleries, if it goes up, now we know we're doing well in the game. Like, that's more important to me than the money itself. But yeah, it's just everything around it and obviously, Sorare goes to zero, I'm looking for another job, which would be a bummer, because looking for a job is kind of a pain in the ass. But it's really just everything about Sorare that I really like. And I was thinking about what you were saying, whether it's addicting or not. And I was trying to consider like what are the real differences. And I'm sure there's like some psychiatrist out there who could explain this very easily, but like the difference between something that I'm addicted to as opposed to just being obsessed with. And like, am I just obsessed with Sorare? Like, I love it so much that I just want to keep doing it, or am I addicted to it? Is it something I have to have? And the more I thought about that, the more I was like, no, I need to focus on getting more FC Midtjylland cards. Don't let these negative thoughts get in the way of that.
I realized I had an addiction-ish. Like, again, because that word it's a dangerous word. What the connotations to that word are what make it a dangerous word. When I say I'm addicted to Sorare, I don't mean in the sense that if I was addicted to a drug, for example, and I have to have it and stuff. I mean that it's on my brain all the time, but not in an unhealthy way. Like, it's on my brain with positive, like, if one of my players gives up a penalty, I'm not crying in a dark room and shaking back and forth, feeling sick. It is what it is. Like, I had a really good lineup in the midweek, and unfortunately one of my players didn't play, and whatever, it happens. But then if my players do really well, the dopamine of getting a podium is like, it is like crack. So I would say I'm addicted to it, and I realized that I have a really strong connection with Sorare when I started having Sorare related dreams and nightmares. Because I would legitimately have a dream or a nightmare where I had a really good lineup and someone wouldn't play, or they'd give away a penalty or something, and I'd wake up, check my phone, check Sorare data, and realize, okay, the game's not until tomorrow night, we're good, there's still potential. I would genuinely have dreams like that all the time. Like, I would have dreams that I had all 5 of my players hit 100 points. Like, whenever I have a lineup that does really well, most of the time I get a Discord notification from the Panthers saying, "Oh, go on, Habes." And that guy's trying to jinx me, by the way. He's not actually saying it in a nice way. He's trying to jinx me. I know I'm familiar with his game. He's trying to jinx me. But I've genuinely had dreams where I've had the Discord notification from Nep saying, "Go on, Habes." Check my lineup and it's doing insane in a dream. Wake up and it's not. So that's when I realized, like, okay, I really do love this game to pieces. And I do think, like, it's so rare. It's maybe going to zero is a bit harsh in hindsight. I think Sorare will be a fundamentally different game in 5 or 10 years. Because I don't think there's a possibility in where you can mint 1,000 limited cards a year and keep up in 10 years' time with the demand that seems to be struggling to keep up now, right? Like, there's only a finite amount of people that eventually will be able to buy these cards. And unless they somehow become such a mainstream company like FPL, for example, I don't know if it'll be like that. I think it'll be a fundamentally different game by then. But like I said, if the concept's the same, I'll always play it.
Yeah, they like the whole concept they nailed. Yeah, and it's just a matter of like execution.
So good.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up Nep because I was going to at some point. You said on our last show together, it was a strategy show with Sean, that if it wasn't for Nep, you'd be like $100,000 richer. But what was the way that you like got into Sorare? Like, was it seeing Nep talk about Sorare, or what was the initial way that Sorare got on your radar?
Originally, it was Nep talking about it. So Nep started talking about Sorare, and he was just like making passing comments saying he was, and he wasn't even heavily invested then himself either. He was just like sort of gradually talking about it. And we used to be on Discord calls like all the time at night time, like chatting and stuff. And he would always talk about Sorare every now and then. And I finally give it a go. Now, when I finally give it a go, I didn't really give it a go. I bought like 5 random limited cards. I didn't use Sorare data. Like, the cards I bought as well were terrible. And I had no idea who I was buying. And then I didn't play it for like 3 months. I came back and realized what I was doing. But that was kind of what first got me into it. But what really sucked me in mainly was it was almost like a competitive thing. I don't think Nep realizes this, but for me, it was like this competitive thing, right? Where when I first really started looking at Sorare, I looked at how Nep played it and thought, I think that I could play that better than you do. Like, I was like, I would not buy those players. I would buy these players, and I would buy that guy. And I think that's a much better idea and a much better strategy. So when I first really got into Sorare was because I wanted to almost prove that my strategy was better. Whereas now I feel like I'm more mature and realize actually, like, there's no such thing as a better strategy. We all just play the game differently. But at the time, it was like a competitive thing. And that's what really got me hooked. And then it was over from there.
So I have like thousands of questions because the whole like FIFA to Sorare thing is really interesting to me because it was obviously somewhere that Sorare thought they could gain users, right? So
yeah,
and I feel like in the most basic sense, it makes sense. These are people who really love like football games and they love spending money, and that's enough. And it just kind of felt like the more I thought about it, the less I noticed that one of the comments, where did I see this? I don't know if it was in like the replies to Nep's tweet about asking people who play foot, like why they don't do Sorare, but it seemed like the biggest difference really is if you want to get into Sorare, like you kind of have to like fantasy sports. Like fundamentally, it's a fantasy sport, and it's not a video game that you control of like what happens, or at least you try to control. And so, like the more I thought about the overlap between FIFA and Sorare, like the less actual overlap I saw. Like the Venn diagram started like separating, and I'm just like curious because you just said it before, like before a year and a half ago, you had never played fantasy sports. Mm-hmm. And so was it actually like, did you even care that it was a fantasy sports game? Or did you think, oh, I can flip cards? Like, At some point, you had to look at Sorare and be like, yes, I want to play this fantasy sport? Or was it just oh, I know what that is and I can beat NEP, and so I'm just going to do that?
To be honest, it will sound a bit stupid when I say it out loud, but it does make sense in my head. I never thought of Sorare as fantasy sports at first. I didn't actually know I didn't even understand the concept of what a fantasy sport was. Apologies, someone's going really loud down my road. I don't know if that comes through on the mic or not, but so I hadn't really even processed the idea of what a fantasy sport even was. I had no idea. I'd never heard those terms before in a setting where I would actually listen and try and understand what they meant. To me, Sorare was a completely new thing in a completely new sector, and it was just its own entity in my head. So I'd never looked at fantasy sports before. Ooh, I have an interest in fantasy sports. To me, Sorare isn't fantasy sports necessarily. It's Sorare, and it's just its own thing. The more I sort of have got into Sorare, I've realized the concept has actually been going on for so long, like the fantasy sports concept. And obviously, like Sean, for example, was massive in fantasy sports before Sorare and stuff like that. And he's someone that's taught me a lot about fantasy sports. But yeah, to me, it was just its own thing. On the topic of the FIFA community thing, and it's not to disrespect, because I do know some of the marketing guys at Sorare, and I think like some of them are really good guys in what they do. I think Sorare approach marketing just completely wrong. And it's a bit of my dad owned a marketing company himself, and so I've always thought myself as someone that's really understood marketing a bit more than your average YouTuber. To me, it's like, I think Sorare approached that all wrong. And I think Sorare's approach should have already been like their demographic is, I agree with you, not FIFA. Their demographic should have been realistically football. Like they approached people like Danny Aarons and Chris MD and things like that. And these guys all have younger audiences who can't even play Sorare, really. Like, they don't have money. They don't have the time. They're in school. They're you know what I mean? They don't have time they don't have the ability to watch football across the world. They don't have the ability to really fall in love with a platform like Sorare. They shouldn't be a target, realistically. What Sorare should have done, and channels that I think were prime for Sorare marketing, NEP I think is perfect, because NEP's audience is not a young audience for FIFA. He has a lot of an older audience within the FIFA community, and that's always shown on his streams because he gets so many interested people in Sorare on his streams. But then people like True Geordie or these like football-based channels that have an older audience should have been their primary demographic, in my opinion. And I feel like that would have been a lot more successful as a marketing strategy. I also think it should have been a bit more aggressive. Like, it took them months to start getting FPL people. Like, who were they afraid of? Like, I want to see aggression. I want to see them like aggressively target a sector and try and bring all the audience from that sector over. I want them to fleece FPL. I don't want people playing FPL anymore. I don't think I'll ever play FPL again. I have no interest in FPL anymore. Now I've played Sorare. I think it's the most boring thing in the world, and I want other people to think like that. Like, that should have been a priority as well for Sorare. But instead, I think they put a lot of money into this massive campaign around the World Cup and a little bit after. And I think they got burned a little bit because it just didn't really work, because I don't think that the demographic and who they targeted was thought through properly. And I hope that in the new summer, I believe from what I've heard, some of their strategies make a lot of sense. And I think they've dropped a lot of people as well from their marketing campaign. And I think like they're going to have a lot more success moving forward. But yeah, I think like primarily it wasn't the right strategy for them. And I do agree, like that Venn diagram, it just... Foot Sheriff is an interesting one. Do you know Foot Sheriff, the big FIFA account? So he's a big Twitter
I'm literally
account.
like I couldn't be more disconnected from FIFA, to be honest.
So Foot Sheriff is somebody that does a lot of Sorare related brand deals and stuff, gets big numbers. He was an interesting one because he gets a lot of big numbers with his Sorare related tweets, but like, again, a lot of the replies are the same as Net. They're just not interested in Sorare. But he's an interesting one because he just loves Sorare now. He's like me, he just loves it. He just plays it a lot. And I think that could also be a good strategy. He's trying to target the people that you think would actually love the platform. Like Nep. I can't believe that Nep doesn't get paid by Sorare to just talk about it in every video. If it was me, it's like the perfect guy. Give that man a bag.
That's so there's like 17 things that you said that I wanted to touch on. Let me just quickly go to the FPL thing. So you've played FPL though. Like you have
I did for
experience
a
playing
bit.
fantasy sports.
Kind of. So I played FPL mainly because my friends played it, and it
Yeah.
was like oh, we'll do an FPL league this year. By December, I stopped playing it because
Yeah.
realistically,
We all
like
do.
there just wasn't dopamine in gaining points in FPL. Like if they had a reward system like Sorare, it basically would be Sorare at that point. But yeah, like that dopamine that keeps you enticed, that keeps you excited, right? And also like what I hated about FPL was that you had to pay part of your points to change players and stuff like that. And it's just like, or I can just go and buy someone off the market in Sorare and put them in my team, you know?
So back to the FIFA thing, or really NEP. So NEP not being like the guy that they use to bring in new users is wild to me.
I can't. Do you know what? Right. I love John to bits. Right. Absolutely love John. And John now, right, is a great person to be like the poster boy of Sorare because he's got a huge channel now. But before John blew up, to me, it made no sense that he was their main focus with marketing because his entire channel was built on Sorare. Who were they bringing in from John? Nobody. Like, it made sense that he was part of a lot of stuff that Sorare did because obviously he's part of the community and he's a recognized face to a lot of already existing users. But it never made sense to have John be the person that promoted Sorare for a lot of people because he literally built his entire audience at the time on Sorare. Now it makes a lot more sense. To me, I thought last year it should have been Nep. Nep should have been the one of the primary examples because Nep is not only is obviously massive in FIFA, but he's a really recognizable face just in the UK. What with him, like he has a lot of really viral moments that have reached far beyond just a FIFA sort of stratosphere. And like if you showed someone around my age in the UK a picture of Nep, there'd be a lot of young males in the UK that know who Nep is. So I feel like he would have been someone that would have been able to grasp a lot of reach with Sorare. And that's really I was shocked. I couldn't believe that Nep wasn't like the poster boy. Like he really should have been like the poster boy of Sorare for a while. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny the way that, because I feel like John did things the other way. Like obviously he started, I mean, he was doing Football Index and other types of content before, but like like you said, like he built his audience with Sorare and then expanded to Sorare, expanded out of Sorare, and like that's where everything took off. So like you're right, it would make more sense to get him now as opposed to before, because it doesn't. I mean, some of the stuff that has helped him get bigger is because of Sorare. Like I get that. So like it's probably a little bit of the chicken and the egg thing, but it's almost like they take advantage of Nep's enjoyment from Sorare, and so they're like, we don't have to pay him because he's already talking about it a lot. But what I think that they are missing out on completely is that he doesn't do anything really to get new users. Like he talks about Sorare all the time because he loves it, but he's not doing any how do you get involved in Sorare, or when people are like Sorare's a scam, he feels no
obligation to push back.
Exactly. And so he will push back simply by being like, what do you mean? But if they actually, I mean, if he had some sort of deal with them, and not to say they need to like go pay him to do all this stuff, but maybe they should go pay him to do all this stuff. And I mean, I had the same conversation with Chani too, that like it's like as soon as they get you to like the game, they're like, okay, we're done with that guy. Let's go convince this other one. And it's like, no offense to you guys, but like, that's not why they need you. They don't need you to play the game as much as you do. They need you to get new users in. And I don't know. It's a weird thing that they didn't go after those two. I was actually curious what the FIFA YouTuber community is like with each other. Like, do you guys, I mean, you were talking about how you like talk to Nep a lot. Is there a lot of like overlap there? And are there other FIFA YouTubers who are not into Sorare or hate it, and you guys are like, no, you should do this, or do you pass them along to Sorare? Like, is there any of that? Like, I don't know what that community is like, and I don't want to like compare it because I don't think that there are FIFA communities of people who are focused on just, you know, all of the teams in Argentina, and therefore there's a Discord of FIFA Argentina people like there is in Sorare. Like I mean, everybody joked there's a Sorare Croatia and a Sorare Turkey. Like, I don't picture that happening in FIFA. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but like, is there at least some sort of community amongst the content creators that are like, we should all be doing Sorare?
No, there's not. I think me, Chani, and Nep are, in terms of content creators, so it's very cliquey in the FIFA community. I think there'd definitely be some people that would enjoy Sorare if they came over, but there is absolutely zero interest from me, Chani, or Nep to go and try and get these guys involved, because it's like I would say I'm friends with a lot of the people in the community, like, or I'd say my acquaintances. Like, I get along with a lot of the guys, but I have no interest in trying to like go and convince them to go and join Sorare. Like, they're grown men. Like, I don't really care. With Sorare, what I have noticed is there's a lot of smaller FIFA accounts that especially were involved in trading on FIFA that have come over to Sorare and really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of those guys are because of me, Chani, and Nep talking about it a lot and really talking about the product a lot. But I don't think there will ever be a huge crossover. And I think a lot of that is because the biggest issue in the FIFA community is that it's a very casual, not really involved game in the sense that a lot of people grind it a lot, but they don't care too much about the actual players on FIFA, for example, and there's no incentive to care more than just the game itself. Whereas on Sorare, it's not just like, I don't just care about my actual super rare card. I care about the player himself. I want him, like, I actually want my players to do well. Even when they're not playing, I want them to do well. I want them to be in good form and stuff like that. In FIFA, like, people just use the most meta cards, and they're not even players really. They're just characters on the game at this point. So I actually don't think there will be that sort of mainstream crossover, and I don't think there will be that mainstream interest either. I don't think fantasy sports is something that the FIFA community will ever really care about, because they just want to play this video game that effectively is the same game every single year. And although I would love to sit there and be like, guys, that $5,000 you put into FIFA every year, you could put into Sorare, have more fun, make money out of it, and have it again in a year. They'd still rather put $5,000 into FIFA, play with the exact same players they played with the last year, and have the exact same thing. And then at September, when the new game comes out, they're back at zero again, and their $5,000 is burned. So, yeah.
The whole like characters in a game thing is a really interesting view. Like, I'd never really thought of it that way, but it makes sense that they're really not footballers. They're just, yeah, like you said, characters in a game. I think part of the biggest, not difference really, but the ability to start over like that in FIFA, it already completely separates it from Sorare. And obviously we could all just sell to Pavel, a topic we'll also get to in a little bit. But so like my son loves Chani's like rebuild videos.
Yeah.
And it's like, today I'm rebuilding Liverpool, and tomorrow I'll do whoever, PSG, and next I'll do Dortmund. And like, you can't really do that in Sorare. And so not that he's making those videos to get people to play Sorare. It's completely unrelated. Yeah. But the whole concept of like, I'm going to sit down and play FIFA, and I realize there are like 1,000 different ways that you can like play FIFA, you know, like, but a lot of them are just like, I'm going to start from zero. And Sorare is like fundamentally the total opposite of like the idea is like building a club over a long period of time and adding rewards and new players and all this stuff. And really, like, the more I consider what happens in FIFA, the less I think it ever made sense for Sorare to go after them.
Oh, 100%. I think the other thing, and it's one thing that's it's a bit of a different point, but the one thing that I think a lot of people in the FIFA community will really struggle with is the idea that somebody that is terrible on FIFA is phenomenal in Sorare. And it's really funny because, and there's another point I'll make in a minute as well, but it's really funny because the amount of like silver players in FIFA that you will never use, never care about, never even heard of, that in Sorare are these either monsters or budding under 23 talents and really expensive. It's hilarious. Like Rayan Cherki was a silver in FIFA this year. Batarina was a bronze, I think, in FIFA this year, and people like that. And it's like, and they are the lowest of the low rated, but in Sorare, they are some of the most exciting prospects. And I think that would be something incredibly difficult for your casual average FIFA community person to get their head around, because it's not the same. And it's funny because when I first got into Sorare, I built a team of just good FIFA players. Like, one of my first purchases was Ben Yedder. And don't get me wrong, Ben is not awful, but like in FIFA, he's a monster. In Sorare, he can be, but most of the time he's not, right? And the same with Kimpembe. I bought Kimpembe because in FIFA he's one of the best. In Sorare, not so much.
He's a guy,
so yeah, exactly. And it's like, so it's funny in that regard. And the other point I was going to make was a lot of people in FIFA, and I'm going to target mainly the UK side of FIFA, will pretty much only watch the Premier League and only care about the Premier League. Whereas and it's funny that the contrast in Sorare, most people don't care about the Premier League and they care about the other. So it's not abnormal in Sorare to watch 3 or 4 different games of football a day when Europeans in full swing on the weekend. It's not abnormal to watch 5 or 6 different leagues in a weekend. That's not abnormal. In FIFA, I talk about, like, I'll pack somebody and be like, oh, this guy was really good. I packed Ndiaye in a previous video, Papa Ndiaye, the guy from Adanaspor. I was like, this guy's a baller for Adanaspor. He is a great scorer. And I got a comment, and I almost posted that on my Sorare Twitter, but I didn't. And it was like, bro, no one cares about you lying about watching the Turkish league. You know nothing about these guys. Stop trying to seem cool. I'm just like, I wish I could show you what my life is like post Sorare. Like, 2 days ago, I was up at 3 a.m. with 2 different MLS games on Apple TV, watching Coles Kiel and Houston let me down. And like, and when weekends in full swing, I'm watching anywhere from the Premier League to the freaking Austrian league. Like, buddy, and it's not abnormal either. That's a really normal thing, and it's not even impressive. But in the FIFA community, it's like mind blowing to these guys that you even watch the Scottish league, let alone like anything outside the Premier League. So I thought that was quite funny. I don't think that these guys in FIFA are really prepared to for Sorare. I don't think that there's this like preparation, because it's a lot of work as well. I think you'll, like, no matter how hard you try in FIFA, you just won't be able to convert huge numbers over. It just won't happen. You need to find that actual football audience. Or I think the other thing that could work is if you do try and go for a FIFA audience, but you go for just in general a very broad audience, and you target nations based on their leagues. For example, Belgium, you do a lot of targeted ad campaigns based on the Jupiler Pro League, and in the Netherlands, you do a bunch of targeted ads based on the Eredivisie and so on and so forth. Like, that also could be a decent strategy, but yeah, that the FIFA community is not ready. That comment alone is why I know they're not ready.
Yeah, no, I actually always wonder, like, what Sorare would be like if they had the Prem from the beginning, or like early on. But they had enough users without the Prem that we all became, well, I did. I don't want to talk about anyone else. I became completely disinterested with the Premier League. And I used to follow it. I used to watch like 6 to all 10 matches every week, because in the US it's actually shockingly easy to watch every match in the Premier League. But as soon as I got into Sorare, and it's like, oh, like Tottenham Chelsea's on today, and I'm like, yeah, but Feyenoord's on. And
yeah,
I'd
exactly.
just rather watch that.
Yeah.
And like, that idea is just like absurd to most people, which I completely understand. But so it does seem like Sorare helps you, at least not so much. Let me go back to actually a different point that you made. So you were saying, like, people play FIFA and they just want the meta cards, and like that's all they care about. Meta players. So obviously we all want that as well on Sorare, but they're really expensive, and so you have to like do some more work and like work your way up to those players. And I feel like that scouting part doesn't transfer over to FIFA.
Oh, not at all.
And so I always like considered like the idea of like, oh yeah, you get FIFA players because they know they know everyone because they play the game, and so like they just know all these players. So when they come to Sorare, they're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. And it took me a while to realize it's the total opposite. It's not like you're going to play FIFA and you're like, oh, let me go get Batterina because he's just not good in the game, or Cherky. But you know who they are because of Sorare. And so it's one of those weird things that I understand why people get or think that Sorare is overwhelming, because they look at that and they're like, I don't want to have to know who Batterina is. Or I was listening to the Sorare Down Under podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about how, like, why isn't Sho Sasaki a household name around the world? And it's like, well, we all know why, but like, we know who he is and we know he's really good. And yet, if you went to somebody, you were like, you should play this new fantasy game. Here's this K-League guy, and it's like, they've already walked away.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I mean, obviously it's not easy to like find all of the people who would want to know who that is and then go buy their cards. But I'll just go back to it. It seems like should they just stop trying to get the FIFA people?
I wouldn't say they should stop. Sorry, please pay me. I think that they should. I think there's a happy medium where I think they shouldn't focus it. I think that there are definitely some people in the FIFA area that would move over. I think there's a good amount in regards to, in a comparison to Sorare numbers. I think there's a good amount of numbers that would come over. In regards to FIFA numbers, I wouldn't say the number is that big. It's like the FIFA community is a big pond. You could get a few fish over, and by a few fish, like, we're talking like thousands of people that could make a really big impact on Sorare. But thousands of people in FIFA is literally like 1%, not even like 0.5% or something of people in there. So like, I do think that there's a world in where there's a bunch of people that could come over, and I think that they should definitely still look at FIFA to market. But for me, the main source of marketing should be those demographics that are going to actually enjoy the platform a lot more. And that being said, like, if Sorare came to me tomorrow and said, name me 5 channels to promote on, it'd take me a while. I'd be able to find them, but it would take me a while. So I understand that they probably
4 more.
Exactly. Itshaber so rare. Itshaber so rare on Twitter. So no, I think like, it would take me some time. So I do appreciate they probably spent a good chunk of time actually figuring out the right people to promote on. And I do appreciate that they, I think, have a better strategy now than they did. And I think that they've got a lot of work out for them to market this thing. But yeah, like, there's definitely room for it. It's interesting. I think we'll sort of see what happens in that regard in the future with Sorare as well. But yeah, long answer short, I'm going on a tangent now. I do think there's room for FIFA in the Sorare marketing campaign, but I think that there is a small, like, if it was me, I'd be like, me, Nep, and Chani would be like the 3 I would go after, because you have that organic promotion as well as the paid marketing, right? Because the way we talk about Sorare versus the way that somebody else that has no idea how Sorare works would talk about it, if you approach them, we could actually market the game. The way we talk about it would inspire people to play it. The way that, somebody else talks about it in that community, it would be reading off a script. It'd be robotic. So Sorare is a fantasy platform game, and you can get these cards, and you know what I mean. Whereas we actually I'd spend 5 minutes talking about it in a video. Like, I'd be covering everything and trying to actually inspire people to play.
I was one of those people, like, before I came to Sorare Data, like RotoWire, where I used to work, like, Sorare did ad buys on our streams and podcasts. And like, I was like, Sorare is an NFT fan. And I'm like, I've like told the story, but I remember when I met with Brian O'Hagan, who's like their growth lead, before we started the ad deal. And he was like explaining Sorare to me. And I was like, this is like incredibly stupid. Like, there's no way I would ever do this. Nobody who watches this stuff, like, but it was more the NFT issue that I had. Like, were you into NFTs at all? Yeah.
No, not into NFTs. I wasn't into crypto either. And I think that's been the biggest stumbling block for Sorare over the last few years. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think when they introduce the fiat wallet, they've got to do a huge campaign, I think, after that, to try and distance themselves from this idea that it's just an NFT crypto game. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with that. And I think they agree with it also, which is why they're going through all of that trouble. But where was I going with that?
Nepenthes sucks, I think, is the last thing you said.
Yeah. where was I going with that? That's going to bother me now. I'll remember it in 3 days.
This is age, man. Age is a crazy thing.
I tell you. What was I even talking about?
So you were telling me about your time in the war, and
I got it. I don't really have it, but I'm just gonna start something else. So I'm already picturing the pushback. Oh, it was when I was reading the ad reads. That's what it was.
Light bulb moment.
Yeah. So you basically have two, like, I can picture the negative responses of everything that you just said, which is just like terrible that's where I came to, but I'm on the internet a lot, so it is what it is. But like, you see people just do these ad reads and you're just like, well, they don't care. They're just getting paid to do the ad. And it's like, yes, that's how ads work. Literally, fundamentally, that's how they work. But on the flip side, I see people who would watch like you or Nep or Chani be like, this is so rare, this is so great. And the response is just like, well, you guys are already on it. You need new users to pump your bags. You're not really into it. But you guys are like so obviously into it, but it's like easy to just like push that away and just be like, no, you're just trying to make a buck from them.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get over that step either. There's no, like, the middle ground doesn't make sense either for Sorare to be throwing money at people who are, I don't even know what the middle ground is of, like, you're either in it or you're not, but that's a tricky spot for them for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always thought that a really good route that could go down is approaching some of the guys that actually play Sorare that are footballers. Like your Griezmanns, I think, is it Daley Blind plays it, or like there's someone from Ajax,
and
there were
a bunch of guys on the team that
like like I feel like that would have been a good approach, is getting some of the footballers that play Sorare to promote Sorare, because then you get this like the cult following of like that, either that player or that team, and they might even if they just go in and just buy players from that team, right? Like you have another avenue there, and I think that could be a good way to explore it. But yeah, it's tough. Especially, I don't talk about Sorare now on my main channels without being paid to, and it's not because I don't want to, but it's because, first of all, I know my value, but it's mainly because if I talk about Sorare, all the people assume is I'm being paid to do it anyway, and it's the same with Nep, and it's like, and it's hard to then. I wish people understood how sort of advertising law worked. I can't sit here and tell you I'm not being paid whilst being paid. I'd be breaking the law. So if I tell you I'm not being paid to say these things, but people don't realize that there's legal implications if I was to lie about that. So they just assume I'm lying anyway. So now I just want, if I'm talking about it in my main socials, I want to be paid anyway. So if people assume I'm being paid, then they're right, I guess. But like, that's always been the difficult thing, because I look at Nep and Nep talking about it, and all people say in his replies are, "You're being paid to say this." And it is really frustrating, even if it's not me it's being said to, because it's like, you have to be an idiot not to see the love that this man has for this game. You have to be utterly stupid to see that he's like. There's a difference between when people shill something or they're being paid to say something, to when someone actually is passionate about something. And the fact that these idiots in the replies don't see that he just is passionate about Sorare, it's mind-numbing to me.
Like, do you know how much you would have to pay somebody to stream 9 hours
of
just ad content? Like, there's just,
bro, it's crazy.
You can't do it. Like, it's just not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of you putting Sorare stuff on your main channel is really interesting to me, in the fact that people think you should just do it, like, on your own. And I feel like it's just one of those things that if anyone who like had a response, like, was saying that, like, you should just put it on your main channel, took like 30 seconds to like really think about it, like, obviously you should not do that. Like, it's the equivalent of you going to work, like somebody else going to work, and instead of working, you're just telling all of your friends about Sorare or trying to get them to sign up. And it's like, you wouldn't spend your day doing that, but like, that's your job. Like, you're not going to just like change what you're doing at work just because of Sorare. even though
Literally,
most
it's
people
like,
just play Sorare at work anyway.
yeah. To be fair, yeah, no. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it took so long to start a Sorare channel. Is I didn't want to start doing Sorare content and forfeit the ability to actually get a bag from it. Like, so full disclosure, I had a 3-month ambassadorship with Sorare around the World Cup time, and I got paid. They paid me quite well as well. Like it was a decent amount of money what they paid me. I wish I could say, but NDAs and shit. But like, so I had a 3-month ambassadorship. And then I had a 2-month deal after that, which was considerably less, but it was a lot less work as well. There was a lot less to be done. And then they basically put it on hold until the new season. I don't think I'm ever getting paid from Sorare again. I'd love to, but I don't think. I just think now they probably don't approach me ever again to work with them. Not because they don't like me, just because like I just don't think that they'll ever do it again. Given the fact I now make
because
Sorare
you're already in
content.
though.
Maybe, I don't know. I think it's one of those where it's like, that's why I waited so long, because I knew there was interest from their side to work with me. And if I started doing free content like NEP, why would they pay me to do something they know they can get for free anyway? So it's like, that's a worry. And that's why I've kept Sorare off my main channels, because if that's paid work for me, like that's my job. I need to make money. I can't be giving companies free advertisement over there. But unfortunately, yeah, I think now that I do Sorare content, and they know I love it. They know I'm flipping hooked. They've got me around the little finger. They know that they probably never have to pay me again, and I'll still, talk about it here and there and stuff.
Yeah, but don't you think that if they paid you, and this is probably more of like a question about a personality trait, but like, wouldn't you feel, or would you feel more obligated to get people to sign up?
Yeah, I think it would be like, here's the funny thing. I've never promoted my affiliate link. I have never. So I had a tracker link to promote for them, but I didn't get anything from that link. I didn't get a affiliate bonus, like a percentage bonus, and I didn't get an affiliate card either. And I've never actually promoted my affiliate link, mainly because I don't want people thinking that when I post about Sorare, it's because I want something from them. It's just because I enjoy it. So I've never promoted my affiliate link before. I've never so whenever I've promoted a link, I've never got anything from that. If you've ever signed up to Sorare from a Itshaber tracker link, I've never received a dime from that. I always had a fixed salary and that was it. And going forward, like if I was to work with Sorare, if I got to choose what we'd do, I would much prefer to do the sort of stuff John would do, where it's like promoting it organically through doing something with them. So like going to a training ground and talking to players and getting content that way. I hate doing ad reads. Ad reads suck. And ad reads they work, but they don't work the same way that seeing someone having a lot of fun doing something because another company got them to do it has that same effect, right? Like if they sent me to Carrington, which is United's training ground, tomorrow, and said, here, go talk to Mason Mount, Raphael Varane, these guys, go and do a challenge with them, and it's all because of Sorare, we'll have all our branding on it and stuff like that. That I think would, first of all, do considerably better on my channel and do way more numbers, but I think it would also do way better in terms of conversion as well. But instead, like, it's just like the stuff I ever did with them was just ad reads and stuff. And although like I can passionately do it, and I think I'm way better at doing it than half the people they'll go and pay next season to do it, like it doesn't have that same sort of effect. And I think I've messaged you about like organic marketing is my favorite type of marketing. And I remember messaging you with different ideas for the Sorare data marketing like stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I'm really obsessed with. I love marketing in general and like that organic marketing, like that route and stuff like that. And that's where I think the focus should always be when it comes to, you do need the ad reads and stuff like that, but that's where I think the focus should be. But I just don't think Sorare, maybe they do. I don't think Sorare will approach me with that sort of stuff. I mean, they have John. John's like the guy to do it, right? They need other people to do it as well, but John's like the guy to do it. But like, I don't think I'll ever get hit with that sort of stuff again.
So I talked to John yesterday about it. And for anyone who is watching this, like when it posts next week, you have already heard John talk about it a little bit, but you have not, because it hasn't come out yet. But one of the things that I brought up with these videos that he does, like when they send him to Napoli or AC Milan or wherever, is there is clearly a Sorare part of it, but Sorare is not it.
Yeah, exactly.
The point of the video is not Sorare. And frankly, that's why the videos, this is going to sound awful. That's why the videos are good, because it's not just like a 8-minute ad for Sorare. But like when he does the like guess the order game with the cards, or like pass the ball and have it stop on the card, like obviously those are so rare cards, and like people, it just it's meant for people to be like, oh, what are those cards? And it's like, oh, it's so rare. Well, it's so rare, and then that just kind of leads the whole conversation. But I wonder how far that stuff can take so rare. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. I think that for me, I think it can take you a lot further than going and getting a YouTuber that focuses on football and giving him a 90-second ad read and putting it on a video. But also, like, there will get to a point where Sorare needs to approach a more wide stream audience, and whether that's now or in the future, like there's going to be points. That's how growth works, right? They're gonna have to level up at some point. For me, I don't even know if the Sorare cards are really necessary in that kind of thing. Like, let's say John did a shooting challenge with the Napoli players or something like that, right? And they got a really good video out of it, and he got to post it as a long form video. Just wearing Sorare shirts, having a Sorare branded football, having like Sorare in the background, that's more than enough. You don't need to incorporate Sorare cards, because ultimately, I think, from my experience with a lot of people that have been onboarded to Sorare, from my experience, people need to learn it by themselves. They don't need to go out and be told, go and get a limited card. They need to get onto the platform and figure out what a limited card is, and then decide if that's what they want. Because I think if you just tell them to go and buy a limited card with real money, they're going to sit there and say, why on earth would I buy some random card on a website that I have no interest in right now? You know what I mean? Like, and that's always been, I think, one of the fundamental issues with promoting Sorare is you can't just go and buy this card, because people aren't idiots, and they're not going to sit there and be like, yeah, okay, I'll go buy it without doing any research into it. Like, almost everyone I know into Sorare there are some people that will go and do that, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people will need to almost gain trust by figuring it out themselves. And I think you have to push them in the right direction rather than show them the right direction and tell them to go that way.
Yeah, that always like got me when people do videos of like how to get started on Sorare, and it always fundamentally is like finding the cheapest possible way to do it. Mm-hmm. And it ignores the fact that some people come in and they're like, I would like to spend $10,000 on this because I have $10,000 to light on fire. And you're like, well, go buy 3 limited cards and play the rare semi-pro. And it's like, people don't want to do that.
Exactly.
What you said kind of reminded or pushed me back to something that we talked about at the beginning, in terms of how you think they weren't like aggressive enough getting like in their marketing campaigns, either before or after the World Cup. But I remember, I think it might have been Nicola, maybe it was Dan, but somebody kind of commented that they were waiting to do like a huge marketing push. Oh, it was actually in response when they signed Mbappe as an ambassador, and everyone's like, you know, one Instagram post from Mbappe about Sorare and we're going to the moon. And they basically admitted that they didn't think the site was ready for hundreds of thousands of people to be interested in it yet. And there have been a lot of changes to the game that make it both easy to play and exceptionally complicated, that they were like, oh, if you just want to play the Prem, we have that. Like, don't worry. And then you go to the lobby and there are 48 contests that you can enter.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
It's really overwhelming. And I think it makes sense that you don't want to get so many people interested in something that may not be ready yet. Like, the more people that you have who are like, yes, I'm interested in that, and they go to your site and they're like, this is way too complicated, I'm out, and they never come back. And when they are with people and somebody else is like, hey, have you ever heard of Sorare? And they're like, I don't even start because it's really you don't want any of that. Like, that's the negative feeling that you have to avoid. Mm-hmm. And yet we're all like, you need to start marketing more because we need more users. And I personally can't see what needs to happen where the game stays. Like, I think the complexity of the game is a positive, but maybe just because I've been around long enough. But it needs to be easy where people come in and they're like, okay, I like this, I'm going to keep going. And they're just not there yet. And I don't think a fiat wallet solves that. I mean, it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But there are like fundamental things that need to be adjusted. And I think the lobby itself, I can't remember if they actually, I'm going to just look at it right now for a second. Like if you're somebody new and you just go to the upcoming contests, like if it just showed you amateur because you don't own any cards, like I think that's helpful. Like I think it's overwhelming to like have to go in.
Yeah.
Does it do
I think
that?
there's like a recommended thing. So I think
right.
I think there's a thing that's auto ticks called show recommended competitions. So for me, like when I go to the landing page, I've got 4 limited, 5 or 6 rare, 5 super rare, and then academy.
Right, we have the cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it'd be a lot more streamlined for someone that's brand new.
That's fair. So great, they've solved it. Let's go with the marketing push now. I
do agree with what you're saying though. I think you're spot on with the overwhelming nature of it. But then I think right now our biggest issue is that I agree. I don't think a mainstream push is what we need right now. I almost think what we could do with right now is people like, I like the strategy of promoting through someone like Pranksy, someone that's heavy in the NFT and crypto world, because ultimately this is still an NFT crypto game. This isn't a football game, and it won't be a football game, a fully focused football game for a very long time, I think still. But when it does become that, that's when you start doing large marketing campaigns with people like Mbappe. That's when you buy advertisement space on TV before a Premier League game and stuff like that. That's when you do that huge push. I think now is the time where you're trying to focus on NFT guys and crypto guys and maybe the odd influencer and things like that. That's where we're at now.
Yeah, but we also, I feel like we constantly look at it as not that that's the only place we should go, but we're like, you should go get the NFT guys.
Yeah.
Like,
so
okay.
like, yeah.
And it's like, but part of the NFT, like going after the NFT people are just like, those are people with money that have used it on JPEGs.
Exactly.
So like,
yeah.
And Pranksy, whether it's organic or not, seems to be really into football. So like, and there are enough people with disposable JPEG income who like football, and like they should be playing on Sorare. And obviously it's not as easy as just going outside. I mean, like, oh, I know that you're interested in that, so you come over. But like, those are the things that they can do. The one thing that a lot of people have been talking about recently is that they're not ready for the Prem yet. So like, we're still a month out from the Premier League starting, but FPL is like up and running. And I don't know why people tag me in things like this on Twitter, but I get asked that, like, shouldn't they launch now? Because then everybody's sharing their FPL teams and talking about prices, and why isn't Sorare doing this? And I realize that like the biggest issue they have right now is they're totally dependent on the cards, and we don't have cards for the new season yet, and they can't really do them yet because of transfers and all this stuff. And if somebody transfers in and they're like, oh, I really want them for my FPL team, like, why are they wearing a Ajax shirt in this card? Because they play for, I'm just making things up at this point, but like,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I think in an ideal world, the opening weekend of the Premier League amateur game would be open right now, but there's like a dynamic of the game that like doesn't allow it. And I feel like that's the thing that they need to figure out, because we saw it with the MLB launch was like mid-season, so that was a little difficult one. But like the NBA launch, it's like they treat seasons like they start when the seasons start, as opposed to a month or 2 months before. Like, that's when people are interested. People want to play FPL right now. Like, they'll give up in October, but they want to play right now, even though there are no matches.
I agree. That hype is there. The interesting thing is that I don't think it's the same like way with Sorare as it is with FPL, right? Because here's my issue is that they've spent the last sort of 3 months with a huge focus on making the market stable again, which I think is one of the most important things for bringing in new users and retaining them. Because if a new user came in, put £100 in, that's worth £50 in a week, they ain't staying. They're going. There's no trust whatsoever there. So I think one of their main things for getting new users in recently is to try and stabilize the market, which I think they've done a pretty good job of. But if they go now and they drop the Premier League tomorrow, like, and the new season cards from the Premier League. And if they did that, they'd probably have to do it for all the other leagues as well. The big issue is all of a sudden, a lot more cards get flooded onto the market, and the price of these cards ultimately will end up going down a little bit because the supply will way outweigh the demand that we currently have. And they're not doing a big ad campaign right now that's bringing in loads of new users. So all of a sudden, that market sentiment they've spent the last 3 months building up is going to shift a little bit. And we're going to go back to those days where people thought that Sorare was going to zero every day because a gallery valuation dropped another $500 or whatever. So it's like they're in a really tough spot at the moment. I think I haven't looked at the auction market on Sorare, but I think what would probably make a lot of sense is if they really dried up the auctions for whatever league they're bringing in next. They dry it up significantly for maybe a week or two or something, and then they drop the league when it seems demand is high and the prices are going really high for these cards, so that you can then drop the new league and the demand can then meet those support the new supply. I think that's probably the best thing you can do, because right now, the last thing we need right now with the confidence they're building, especially with the current users, is that to be wiped away by over minting that people don't realize actually is not over minting. It's just the market correcting itself, but they think it's over minting because their terrible cards that score L15 of 45 but get 100 points 6 years ago in the second division of Yugoslavia. Like, they don't realize that those cards no one wants, but they get worried when those cards are going to absolutely nothing. So yeah, I think like they're in a tough spot right now, but I will say that I am more confident than ever that they're making the right choices, because it feels like, although every now and then they drop an update a day before it happens and be like, hey, you go, fucking good luck withdrawing now, bitch, like give us 5%. I think like every now and then they drop one of those, but at the moment I'm confident. I trust Sorare, and that's the main thing, because although new users is great, we make up the market right now. We make up Sorare, and if they lose us and they lose the trust in us, like there's no point even getting new users, because we are the current user base right now is the backbone of Sorare, and losing them, you can't replace the current user base with Sorare. It's impossible, because we are like there's probably let's say I don't know how many users Sorare has. Let's say Sorare had 1 million users right now. I know they don't, but let's say they did, just for all intents and purposes. I would be shocked if there was another 1 million people that would care as much as we do about Sorare that you could get in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's so. I think keeping us happy is as important as bringing in new users, and finding that balance is difficult.
I mean, surely the first million or first 100,000 users will be your most passionate ones.
Absolutely. I mean, that yes and no, because I think you can find someone that just hasn't heard about Sorare that is as passionate about as someone that got in at number 10, right? Like, so
yeah,
but
I just meant like your first 100,000 are going to be overall more passionate than your next 100,000, and then the subsequent 100,000 in terms of like average enthusiasm amongst the group.
Yes. Sorry, I understand what you said. Yeah, I do agree. I think bottom line is just about like you can't just get new users in and then expect everyone, like if it like, and this is what I was worried about. My big worry last year was that Sorare were correcting the market because they thought the only way to get new users in was lowering the market significantly. And my worry was that they weren't thinking about the implications that would have on somebody that's been in the game for a while, that spends their excess money for a while and still spends their money on the game. Like, I would be willing to bet majority of the money they make are from people that have been playing the game now for a considerable amount of time over people that have been in the game for a short period of time, you know?
It's funny you talk about the falling prices, because I was talking to somebody the other day about how it was basically that market correction. And the thought was, how do you convince new people to join if they see that prices have been falling? And my response was, new people have absolutely no idea that prices have fallen. Like, they know what the prices are today, but like most people who join and they just don't look at what something cost 6 months ago. Like, they don't, some do, but like, I'm telling you, like most people will come in and be like, how much does that Hallen card cost? And you're like, $200. And they're like, okay, seems high, but he's really good. And it's not until like weeks later that they're like, this card used to be 2,000. And then it's just like they're already in at that point.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I do think I think the people that would check for the last 6 months are actually more likely the people that are going to spend more money, because they're the ones that will do their due diligence, and they're the ones that actually I like think are the ones that it's a really weird one. I think the market correction was necessary. I think it was a lot harsher than it had to be. Like, I think a more gradual correction would have been nicer. Like, I bought my Kimmich. Let me tell you right now, because Kimmich is my prized possession on Sorare, right? He's my favorite card. He's one of, if not my favorite player in real life as well. Does it have a date on Sorare when I bought the card? It will have it on Sorare data, right? The day I bought the card.
Yeah.
Josh Kimmich. I picked up Josh Kimmich on the 21st of March, 2022. So just over a year ago, a year and 2 months ago, roughly. And I paid at the time 5.2 ETH, which at the time was worth £12,000. Kimmich is now, his last sale was 2 ETH, which at its current moment in time, 2 Ethereum is worth £3,000. £3,000. So the thing is, does that sting? Yes. It hurts, man. It does hurt to know that I have essentially lost £8,000 in a year on just one card. That does hurt, but it doesn't hurt as much knowing that I am paying a price for the game staying alive and for the thing I love continuing. I do not care about that £8,000 or effectively, let's say, the 80 grand that my gallery has gone down in the last year via like whatever. I don't care as much about losing that money if it means I get 3 years more of Sorare, or five years more, or 10 years more of Sorare with these cards that I bought and stuff like that, and the enjoyment I have. It's worth it to me, because ultimately I think, although that some of us were unlucky in the time we got in, me especially, and Nep especially, and Chani especially, like we're paying a price for the longevity of something that we really enjoy, and someone had to. So, like, someone was going to get burned. And unfortunately, in this case, it was us. But at the same time, if I get, like, Kimmich is 28 right now. Kimmich plays until he's 33, right? At the moment, so I paid 5.2 ETH for that card. And in a year, he's won me just himself 1.5 ETH in cards and 0.155 ETH in just Ethereum, right?
Including another Kimmich.
Exactly. So let's call it 1.7 ETH, and that's in 1 year. If I can get the same return out of him for the next, until he's 32 years old, the next 4 years, I've made back and more what I paid for him, and I still have the Kimmich that I can sell. So it's not like, I don't mind playing the long game in that regard. And I know obviously earlier in the podcast I said I think Sorare will go to 0 at some point, and I do think it'll go to 0, but I don't like. I think Sorare and Sorare are two different things. There's Sorare the name, and there's Sorare the game. I don't think the game ever dies. I think the original company, like me saying this, they absolutely could get it spot on. And if they continue the trajectory they're going with how they've been doing things, I don't think they will die. But I just think that there's always that one decision they can make that can ultimately ruin it. And that's why I get scared. And I'm a very negative person in that regard. I'm a bit like Sean. Sean's the most negative person I've ever met in my entire life. That guy.
Oh, really?
That guy's house is black and white. So like, I'm pretty sure he actually sees in black and white as well. But like, so I'm a bit like Sean in that I'm a bit of a pessimist in that regard. In my heart, I hope it never goes to 0. I want it to continue for 50 years. But like, you know, I'm a pessimist, so I'm like almost mentally preparing myself for that. But yeah, if when Kimmich is 32 years old, I've had the same results and I've won back what I paid for Kimmich and whatnot. I don't care about losing that money now. Like, it sucked at the time, but like, it was worth it to have that Kimmich for as long as I have and whatnot. So I don't like, yeah, for me, it's like, it stings, it hurts, but it was necessary if it brings in stability, control, and new users all at the same time that will continue keeping this game afloat and the thing that I love afloat. I don't mind taking the hit. You're cutting your arm off to save the body, right? Like, I don't mind, you know? Although when I am homeless in a year's time, you know, I will care.
I think one of the clearest examples of how much you, Nep, and Chani love this game is just what you said. All three of you came in at like the absolute peak, and you're still here.
Yeah.
And obviously it's really difficult for a lot of people to like to experience basically your card values going down or whatever it is. And all three of you, and it's not like you all came in and spent $100 and now it's worth £100 and now it's worth 20. But obviously you've gotten a ton out of it, and like not even just financially, because that money's gone in anyway.
Yeah, I've literally gained nothing financially out of it. All the money I got paid from Sorare of that ambassadorship, I literally put back into Sorare, by the way.
Yeah.
So it would be smart for Sorare to actually promote, because it'd be free promotion, because I would genuinely put it all back into Sorare. I'm not even joking. Like, they would effectively be washing money through me. In fact, Sorare, that's a great idea. Do you know what? Yeah. Could we cut this part out? I'm going to message my manager and we're going to figure something out here. I think there's some kind of illegal shit we could do that would work in favor of all of us. All right, cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If the FBI are watching, ignore everything I just said.
I think we should just stop there before we start getting ourselves into real trouble. So yeah, thank you so much, Haber, for coming on and for filling a spot this week. It's been a lot of fun.
Anytime.
Are you doing a scheduled stream every day, or are you just doing? Oh, by the way, it's at Itshaber Sorare on YouTube and Twitter. Go over there and subscribe.
That's me. I'm literally just streaming whenever I'm like not doing anything. I can't lie. That being said, I just secured my Angelino deal. Ooh. We picked up the Super Rare Angelino. I think I paid 0.8 in the end, which I don't mind too much. It's a lot less than the 1 ETH that I thought I was going to have to pay. So happy about that.
There you go.
So yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. The streams are just like whatever, really. It's kind of like I'm doing nothing for the next 3 hours. Let's just pop a stream on and chat to some people about Sorare and stuff. So yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, go over there, subscribe to the channel, throw that little bell on so that you know when he's streaming. I will say Haber's very good at titling things that make me want to click on it. So like, I'll do this quick story first. Last week or the week before, Sean sends me a message and he's like, yeah, Haber must have been like talking about me on his stream. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I just got this notification from Twitch, like that he mentioned me in it. And I was like, I think he literally titles it, mentioned you or something like that. And I was like, so everybody gets this. So I apologize for ruining that secret, but.
Oh no, it's people know it by now, but that's kind of stopped working now, unfortunately. But it did for a little while. The first few times I did that, it worked. It worked really well. It was quite funny. The amount of people that come in like, "Oh, are you talking about me?" Like, no.
But now that you're here, welcome.
It's quite funny. Yeah, now that you're here. My favorite ever YouTube title. Sorry, just randomly before we end, I titled a video like. I just want to find it real quick. It was like, this title was my favorite for Game Week 349. This week's Linux, but like, I'm going to sell my gallery to Pavel if I get another DMP. It's my favorite ever YouTube title. So,
we didn't talk about Pavel. We'll have to have you again.
We got 10 minutes to spare, lad.
We
talk to me about Pavel. Come on.
So,
guys, we're not ending the video just yet.
Yeah,
right?
sorry.
Ignore that outro. We're back.
I was going to say I'll cut it. I'll cut it and I'll do it. I'll just splice at the end, but there's absolutely no way I'm doing that. So we'll just keep going.
No, we're back.
So Spicer sold all of his football cards to Pavel.
Oh, it was like
and
Christmas.
We were talking earlier this week just about like what happens when traders get cards that you want and all of the vultures come out. It was absolutely fantastic to see how many people were like, oh my God, look at all these cards. And we all like rush over to see what kind of junk we can send. I got a Gabriel Florentin super rare. I wanted to get a Joseph Misic, but somebody beat me to it. And all these other people are like, did you see he has this card? And it's really funny when people share news like that. And you're like, I didn't see that, but and then just like run over to do their own. Did you get anything out of the deal?
Yeah. So I picked up Rare Coman and Rare Delict for I basically sent him like 4 super rares that hadn't sold in 6 months for those two very liquid rare cards, which obviously make a lot of sense for the buy-in players I got in my gallery as well. And then like the other day I got a super rare Fred as well because I think he'll get a good move at some point. I went for like another couple of cards, but we spoke about this before. There was somebody that I went for a certain card. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to offend anyone, but I went for a certain card and Pavel kept rejecting it. I'm like, why is this guy reject? These are good offers. Pavel usually accept these kinds of offers. They're like ETH plus player deals and stuff. And then I realized he then sold the card to some idiot that overpaid like crazy, sent him such a stupid offer. And I'm like, now I know why Pavel's rejecting it, because he's playing this moron for like 3x what I was offering him. And like, all like this guy gave him the sun, moon, and stars for like this card that could be good, but also actually had a really big risk involved as well. So it was like, that one was frustrating. It was just funny though. It literally felt like we were rioting and like looting stores. Like it felt like there was a riot going on and someone said, hey, Walmart's been cracked open, get yourself down here, grab a TV or some shit. And we all just went running and like grabbing speakers and TVs and bicycles and crap from Walmart. It was like the craziest, like, and the funny, I've never seen the community become so like as one. Everyone did the same thing on the same day. Yes. Who would have thought that Spicer selling his gallery to Pavel would have been like the biggest event in the last 3 months in the Sorare community? Given everything that we've had announcement-wise as well, it was like everyone, it was Pavel's birthday as well. Like that was even the crazier part.
That was the best part. Yeah.
Do you know, have you ever wondered, I really would love to know how much profit Pavel made in that day in terms of opportunity cost. Like obviously he got a lot of cards back, but like I'd be willing to bet Pavel made at least $50,000 in opportunity cost that day, at least, with some of the cards he got. Like crazy.
It was a ton of fun, and
I loved that. I was streaming at the time, and like my whole 20 people came in my chat were like, check Pavel's gallery. When I look at Pavel's gallery, I like to call it dumpster diving, like because half the time that's what you're doing, right? But like they were like, check Pavel's gallery. And it made me realize, I put something in a Discord we're in, and I was like, how essential Pavel is to Sorare. And that day made me realize, like, the one thing Pavel does, and I don't think people realize, is he gives hope to people that are absolutely hopeless. There are, and no offense if you are in this category, but it is brutally, honestly true. There are so many idiots in Sorare that buy the dumbest cards that make no sense. And then in 2 months' time, when they've won nothing with these terrible cards, they're either complaining about Sorare or they want to get rid of them and they just want to leave, right? Pavel gives hope to those hopeless people that don't understand how to get a good card, because he will take that crap off your hands that you can't sell to anybody with half a brain. He will take that crap off your hands for something that actually is maybe actually not an awful buy. And what I think a lot of people, because myself, I used to do this as well. Like a year ago, the amount of trade I did with Pavel, I reckon out of the 80 grand I've lost in Sorare, I reckon like 15 of that is probably through just trading with Pavel and taking a percentage loss. But I was that exact guy. I bought someone, either I bought it without thinking, or bought it without doing research, and then realized it was a terrible idea, and then went and like traded it to Pavel. That excitement you get about getting that brand new card in the gallery and getting rid of all that crap that you've not liked for a long time and you've wanted to get rid of for a long time. That excitement, it feels like your Sorare journey is just reset and it's changed, and your trajectory is all of a sudden on this massive pathway that you weren't on before. And if Pavel wasn't there, those hopeless people probably would have just left Sorare. But instead, like, the amount of people I'd be interested to know how many people have done a deal with Pavel that have kept them on Sorare, and then they've ended up like changing their trajectory completely and ended up doing really well from Sorare. Like that, I would love to know. So he's essential. That guy, as much as I give him shit, that guy is important, man. That's an important man right there.
I also think it demonstrated the exit ability for people on the other side, those who have really huge galleries, that your exit is not zero. And that you can, I mean, obviously he's going to absolutely rake you for the percentage that you get, but it's a lot more than zero. And so,
absolutely.
I mean, somebody commented the other day that he writes in the Discord, like this main Sorare Discord, that he can buy galleries up to 400 ETH. Most people don't have 400 ETH galleries, but like to know that you have at least one exit opportunity at that level is really
absolutely helpful. Yeah. I mean, and like, there's been a few people that I think have had to leave Sorare quickly because they've had something happen, like a situation happen, right? Like to have that ability is huge. So it's one of those where, but the tough thing is, right? Often the people that are complaining about Pavel have the smallest galleries. They're playing maybe only limited, and Pavel isn't interested in trading his limited for your limited. That's maybe worth a bit less or some crap like that. So if he's rejecting your offers constantly, it's because he has no interest in making a cent on a card. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, people need to realize that. So when I see a lot of complaints about Pavel, often it's those people. The amount of like whales or people with a big gallery that I talk to that have no issue with Pavel is huge. Like a lot of them like Pavel because, like, you know, my gallery on Sorare data is worth about 27 ETH or something, or 28 ETH. I know that I could probably get 15 ETH tomorrow from Pavel if I wanted to sell it. Like, if I needed 15 ETH to go, like say, you know, there was some kind of family emergency, like that to have that is huge. So, you know, I think he gets a lot of stick, but often the loudest voices are the people that don't actually make much of a difference in terms of their voice in that regard, because, you know, Spicer, I think, was a huge voice in that in regards to gallery valuation, and you know, obviously he's the inventor of Play Sharper as well. Like or I think he's the inventor of Play Sharper.
Yeah.
So like that guy had a really loud voice. He didn't have any issue with Pavel. They're the people that matter in terms of their voice. You know, well, not matters. Like that's a dangerous thing to say. Like everyone's voice matters, but like they're the people that people listen to more. You know, Spicer definitely has a louder voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's me. We can end now. If you got lunch to have, I'm smelling something cooking right now. In your house.
Well, I'm glad we at least were able to talk about Pavel, because I did want to talk about that, and it would have been really unfortunate if we didn't get to it. But frankly, we should just do another show where it's just about Pavel.
I would love that, but I think Sean's got to be there as well. The one reason why I don't do a lot of deals with Pavel is because I'm scared of the scrutiny I'll get from Sean. That guy, and I said this to you, Sean's a little bit out of touch with the market sometimes, and he thinks that every card can sell tomorrow for a small haircut on the price. I don't think he understands what the word liquid means in regards to some cards, and he's always scrutinizing like certain deals without realizing that actually, like, that super rare I have is not a 0.4 ETH card, Sean, unless you want to buy it for 0.4 ETH. No one else does. So Pavel taking it for 0.2 ETH is actually saving my bacon a little bit. So,
yeah, I'm not going to go into it now, but yes.
Next week or the week after, we'll do a show with Sean, and we'll go into it, and we'll do tear down.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much, Haber, and I'll probably just DM you in a few minutes about when we can get you back.
Brilliant. Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you for watching this video.